Have you ever noticed how a spoonful of condensed milk feels almost impossible for time to touch? It sits in a can for months, sometimes longer, waiting in a pantry as if the clock somehow forgot it. Then one day, it is poured into coffee in Saigon, swirled into blazing orange tea in Bangkok, pulled through strong black tea in Hong Kong, or scraped from a pot in Brazil after turning into caramel so rich it almost feels illegal. It is one of those ingredients that seems to belong everywhere, like sugar, or salt, or bread. But the story of condensed milk does not begin in dessert. It does not begin in cafes. It does not begin in comfort at all. It begins in an era when fresh milk was dangerous, when transportation was slow, refrigeration did not exist, and something as innocent as a child drinking milk could become a death sentence. Long before condensed milk became a sweet shortcut in kitchens around the world, it was a desperate answer to a deadly problem. And the man who found that answer was not some polished genius who got it right the first time. He was an inventor who kept failing in public, failing expensively, and failing in ways people remembered. That is what makes this story so human. One of the world's most beloved foods was built by a man whose earlier inventions were so unreliable they bordered on comedy. His name was Gail Borden Jr., born in 1801, and if you looked at the early chapters of his life, you would not have guessed he would change the future of milk. He worked as a surveyor, helped map parts of Texas, and even played a role in planning Galveston. He chased big ideas with the kind of stubborn faith that often looks ridiculous until one day it doesn't. One of those ideas was a preserved meat biscuit, a concentrated ration he imagined could feed travelers and soldiers. It even won recognition at the Great Exhibition in London in 1851. On paper, that sounds like triumph. In practice, the product never became the breakthrough he wanted. His preserved food experiments kept colliding with reality. But that same year, on the return voyage from England, Borden saw something worse than failure. He saw children aboard ships suffer after drinking contaminated milk. That moment changed the direction of his life. According to the National Inventors Hall of Fame, witnessing children die for lack of safe fresh milk pushed him to search for a way to preserve milk without refrigeration. That decision sounds obvious now because we live in a world of cold chains, pasteurization, sterile packaging, and grocery stores glowing with refrigeration. But in the mid-19th century, milk was a gamble. It spoiled fast. It absorbed contamination easily. It traveled poorly. It could sour in transit, breed bacteria, and turn from nourishment into risk with brutal speed. Borden believed there had to be a way to remove the part of milk that made it so unstable, the water. But the challenge was more complicated than simply boiling milk down on a stove. Ordinary boiling would scorch it, change the flavor, wreck the proteins, and produce something burnt instead of useful. He needed a gentler method. That clue came from vacuum technology. At a shaker community in New York, Borden studied a vacuum pan, a device that lowered pressure so liquids could boil at lower temperatures. That mattered because under reduced pressure, water leaves a liquid earlier, before high heat has time to ruin it. It was exactly the kind of controlled, elegant trick he needed. So picture the process. Fresh milk comes in first, and from the beginning, the battle is against contamination. Borden was obsessed with cleanliness long before germ theory became mainstream public knowledge. He set strict rules for dairy suppliers, demanding sanitary practices that were unusually rigorous for the time. That discipline mattered because no preservation method can fully rescue carelessness at the beginning. Then the milk is heated and concentrated under vacuum. In modern dairy processing, evaporation for condensed milk happens under reduced pressure, so water can be removed without the product sitting at punishing temperatures. Tetra Pak's Dairy Processing Handbook explains that sweetened condensed milk depends on a combination of heat treatment, vacuum evaporation, and a carefully controlled sugar ratio that gives the finished product very low water activity. That phrase, water activity, is the hidden key to the whole mystery. Most people hear condensed milk and think the answer is just thickness. It is thicker, so maybe it lasts longer. But thickness is only the visible part. The real question is how much water inside the food is actually available for microbes to use. The FDA defines water activity as a measure of available moisture, and notes that when food is controlled to 0.85 or less, microbial growth becomes dramatically limited. It also notes that many foods sit far above that range and naturally support bacterial growth, while low water activity foods do not. Sweetened condensed milk lives in that protected zone. Food standards, Australia. New Zealand describes sweetened condensed milk as not commercially sterile, but still unlikely to support growth of pathogenic bacteria because its high sugar content drives water activity down to roughly 0.83 to 0.85. That is the part most people never hear. And unopened, it does not never spoil in the literal sense. What it does have is an environment so hostile to microbial growth that it becomes shelf-stable for a long time. And this is where sugar stops being a flavor and becomes a technology. After enough water has been removed, a large quantity of sugar is added. Not a decorative amount. Not a sweetener in the casual sense. A preserving amount. Tetra Pak notes that sweetened condensed milk typically contains about 45% sucrose and a water activity around 0.78, low enough that the product is, in principle, self-preserved. In other words, the sugar ties up free water. Microbes need available water to grow, multiply, and make trouble. The sugar doesn't march in and kill them like poison. It does something quieter. It changes the environment so there is not enough usable moisture left for most harmful organisms to thrive. It is starvation by chemistry. That is why sweetened condensed milk and evaporated milk are cousins, not twins. Both begin with milk concentrated by removing water. But evaporated milk is unsweetened, so it cannot rely on sugar-driven water control the same way. It must be sterilized more aggressively to become shelf-stable. Sweetened condensed milk survives by formulation as much as by heat. Once the milk reaches the right concentration, the process is still not finished. One of the quiet technical battles in condensed milk is crystal control. If lactose crystallizes badly, the texture turns gritty, sandy, and unpleasant. So manufacturers cool it carefully and often seed the mixture with very fine lactose crystals to guide the process toward a smooth mouthfeel. Tetra Pak describes this as one of the most critical stages because the goal is not just preservation. It is preservation without ruining the experience of eating it. That is what makes condensed milk such a fascinating invention. It is not merely durable food. It is durable food engineered to still feel indulgent. Safe enough to travel, pleasant enough to crave. But invention alone did not make it famous. At first, Borden could not convince enough people to care. He patented his condensed milk process in 1856, yet commercial success did not arrive instantly. Early factories struggled. Sales were slow. He found backing from financier Jeremiah Milbank, and together they built the New York Condensed Milk Company. But even then, the product had not yet met its historical moment. Then history handed Borden the harshest and most effective marketing campaign imaginable: war. During the American Civil War, the Union Army needed food that could travel, survive heat, and feed soldiers far from fresh supply. Condensed milk did exactly that. The National Inventors Hall of Fame says the Union Army ordered more of Borden's milk than his factory could produce. Scenic Hudson reports that production at the Wassaic factory surged from 16,000 quarts a month in 1862 to 14,000 quarts a day in 1863, with each 10-ounce airtight can delivering around 1,300 calories. Another historical source notes that the federal government's early order was 500 pounds, a small number compared with what followed, but enough to prove the concept under real field conditions. And that is the moment the story changes from invention to adoption. Soldiers learned to trust it. Armies moved it. Supply chains normalized it. War, grimly enough, taught a nation how useful this strange canned milk could be. After the war, the men who had depended on it went home and kept buying it. What had begun as a life-saving preservation method became a habit, a pantry item, a domestic staple. Then, through trade networks, colonial shipping, and military movement, condensed milk traveled much farther than Borden could have imagined. It moved into climates where fresh dairy was hard to store. It entered cities where sweet tea, coffee, and confections already had local identities waiting for adaptation. And this is where one of the most beautiful things in food history happens. A product escapes its inventor's intention and gets rewritten by the world. In Vietnam, it meant dark roasted coffee and ice. creating the lush contrast of bitter and sweet that defines café soda. In Thailand, it helped shape the creamy sweetness associated with chayen. In Hong Kong, it deepened the body of milk tea sold in fast, noisy stalls, where routine and flavor became inseparable. In Brazil, sweetened condensed milk became a cornerstone of home sweets, most famously brigadeiro, where the canned product turns into something halfway between candy and memory. JSTOR. Daily notes that condensed milk became embedded in cuisines around the world precisely because it was adaptable, transportable, and easy to integrate into local tastes. It was never just imported. It was adopted, translated, and emotionally naturalized. And maybe that is why condensed milk feels bigger than its ingredient list. Because beneath the sugar and dairy is a pattern we recognize in so many lasting inventions. The best ones solve one urgent problem, then go on to solve 10 more nobody predicted. Borden set out to make milk safer. He did not set out to sweeten iced coffee in Southeast Asia, shorten dessert making in Indian kitchens, or help build confection traditions in Brazil. He was trying to remove danger from a food children depended on. Yet because the solution was practical, portable, and sensorially pleasing, culture grabbed it and made it personal. That is how a medical and logistical answer transforms into comfort food. There is also something strangely moving about the irony of Borden himself. Here was a man who had stumbled through failed inventions, watched ideas collapse, and kept going long enough to create something that outlived him by generations. Britannica describes him as a businessman and inventor focused on food concentrates as a way to safeguard the human food supply, and that phrase feels exactly right. Condensed milk became his rare convergence of compassion, chemistry, and timing. Not because it was glamorous, but because it was useful in the deepest sense. So why does condensed milk seem like it never spoils? Because it is built like a fortress. Water is removed. Sugar is added in a quantity high enough to tie up what moisture remains. Heat reduces microbial risk. Airtight packaging seals the system. The result is a product with such low available water that most dangerous bacteria cannot grow in it under normal unopened storage conditions. Shelf-stable is not the same as eternal. But unopened, condensed milk lasts because every part of its design fights spoilage at once. And maybe that is the deeper reason people love it. Not just because it is sweet, but because it feels dependable. Coffee becomes velvet. Tea becomes dessert. That is a remarkable legacy for a product born out of grief, frustration, and stubborn experimentation. A man watched unsafe milk kill children and decided that was not acceptable. He borrowed an idea from vacuum technology, wrestled with chemistry, survived business failure, and created a food that helped reshape modern dairy. Then the world took that safe milk and made it delicious in 100 different languages. That is the secret of condensed milk. It was invented to protect life, but it endured because people found joy in it. And that may be the fate of every great practical invention. First, it solves a problem. Then, if it is lucky, humanity teaches it how to become love.